Joe Biden has woken up after pulling out of the race for president 2024. It seems like Joe Biden has now stepped up and is making some moves here. He announced today some major reform proposals for the Supreme Court. President Biden has called on Congress to do three things: to establish 18-year term limits. That means no more lifetime appointments for Supreme Court justices. Number two, to create an enforceable code of ethics for all justices. Now, let's be clear. It's for all justices, and it's probably necessary, but it was always kind of common sense until Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito started acting the fool. And Clarence Thomas is definitely at the top of the list. I mean, he damn near makes his decisions based on who has the bigger spending package. He's like a free agent in sports. It's time to make a Supreme Court decision, man. Dude be taking trips, boat rides, plane rides, all that stuff. So what I'll call the Clarence Thomas reform proposal. And then number three, the big one, he wants a constitutional amendment that prohibits blanket immunity for presidents. This, of course, is a reaction to the conservative majority's unprecedented ruling that gives all presidents, and again, it's really for Donald Trump, immunity from prosecution. This is no small deal. This is a huge proposal and an ambitious one. And it's one that people have been waiting for a long time. The courts made decisions that seem to be irreversible at the moment. They seem to be unstoppable at the moment at the level of the judicial branch. But there's always the legislative branch. Joe Biden has said, look, Congress, you need to do this. He's pressing on lawmakers to do this immediately. Now, we know in real life, this ain't going to happen fast. Nothing in this country happens fast unless there's an attack on our country. Nothing happens fast unless capitalism is on the line. Nothing happens fast unless it's in the best interest of the powerful for it to happen fast. But what we do know, with just 99 days to go before Election Day, is that the proposal itself is a political act. Joe Biden proposing this now forces Republicans to respond. It forces Democrats to respond and say what side they are. This is a very, very closely divided Congress, so it's unlikely that they'll make any kind of definitive decision before Election Day. But it makes everybody go on the record. One of the first people to go on the record has been Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris. Obviously, she was in the back help cooking this one up. But she immediately came out and said she supports the proposal. And she said there is, quote, a clear crisis of confidence facing the Supreme Court. When you come out with that kind of quick response, you're saying, look, I support justice. I support democracy. And I oppose these improper, unethical relationships between Supreme Court justices and the powerful. I oppose people being in office forever. There was a time, just to give you some historical context, there was a time when the average Supreme Court justice served about 17 years. In fact, from the beginning of this country until about 1970, the average time that a Supreme Court justice spent on the court was 17 years. Since 1970, the average has been 28 years. That's a whole other 11 years. That's 3 more presidents. And this is not about anything other than probably people just being healthier and living longer, and presidents being wiser about how they want to advance their political interests by starting to think about getting younger jurists. I mean, you got Clarence Thomas. I'm the wrong name. Clarence Thomas has been on the court for 33 years. John Roberts has served for 19. Samuel Alito has served 18. So all 3 of them are already beyond the kind of the old average. And it's only going to get longer. Now, Democrats have said they want term limits. Republicans have said they wanted term limits. Usually each side says they want term limits when the other side is in control. But everybody has said the same thing. You also have people calling for ethics codes. Almost everybody says there should be clear codes of ethics for the court. In fact, Justice Elena Kagan just last week called for it. Now, she's the first justice to do so, but the justices are starting to say publicly, it means something. You know that it's a big deal. this is why it is important that Biden do this now, because now Trump has to respond. I guess Trump doesn't have to, he does whatever he wants, but Trump should respond. The Republicans in Congress have to explain why they would or would not support this. Now they're going to filibuster and make this a non-issue, or make it seem like it's a non-issue or an issue that doesn't need to be resolved immediately. But at the end of the day, when Clarence Thomas is taking luxury trips, when even people who I don't necessarily think are being unethical, like Sonia Sotomayor, an Obama appointee, when you have staff members getting institutions to buy copies of her memoir and her children's books, I don't think that that's okay. I think that's a conflict of interest. I think it's an abuse of power. I'm just saying I don't think it's corrupting her decisions. You know, I don't think every jurist on there is corrupt. I just think they're making bad choices. You need a code of ethics. You need a code of ethics. It's that simple. And Biden is putting Kamala Harris in a position where she can now carry the torch and look like the steward of this very, very reasonable policy. This also, I think, creates energy around the Democratic Party for their candidate. Right now, you got a lot of people on the left, myself included, who are like, yo, Kamala, we're not happy with where you are in Palestine. We're not happy with where you are on policing. We're not happy with where you are on reparations. So when we see a proposal like this, that there's at least an opportunity to step up and say, okay, here's some stuff we all agree on. Let's move forward with that agreement, that consensus in mind, so that we're not only operating from a posture of disagreement, but we're also moving forward with some strong, reasonable consensus arguments that we can agree on. Now, that consensus could include the right. Conservatives could say, yeah, we want these values reformed too. Yeah, we want these laws reformed too. Oh, yeah, we want the president not to be able to perform executions on other people and then say it was official government business and be allowed to not be prosecuted for it. I mean, these are common sense things we shouldn't be able to do. But Republicans ain't going to do that. They're going to continue to hold it down. They're going to continue to hold down their fort 10 toes on a position that is unethical and unreasonable. So that allows those centrist voters, those quote unquote reasonable voters, those so-called, I'm just trying to decide who the best candidate is, I'm not a super partisan, all of them can make their own choices now and say, wait a minute, one group of people is doing something reasonable, another group is not. I'm not endorsing the Democrats here. I'm just saying this is an opportunity strategically for Democrats to look a lot more responsible than maybe they have in recent weeks and months.